I was standing barefoot on my front porch, sipping coffee, when 6 sheriff SUVs rolled up my long dirt driveway like I was some criminal. Sirens off, but lights flashing red and blue. It looked like a raid scene straight out of a movie. Dust clouds followed them, curling into the air behind their tires as the trucks skidded to a stop right in front of my barn. I didn't flinch. I just watched. Calm. Because I knew something they didn't. The lead officer jumped out first, hand on his gun holster, barking orders. You. Drop whatever's in your hand. This land is no longer yours. My eyes didn't leave him. I placed my coffee cup down slowly. I think you've made a mistake, I said, cool as ice. He stepped closer. Sir, we were told by the HOA that you're trespassing. This ranch is under their protection now. I blinked. Once. That's when I heard it. Another vehicle, much quieter, pulling up behind the cop cars. A black truck. Bigger. Sleeker. And when the door opened, out stepped my older brother. Full sheriff uniform. Real badge. And everyone froze. He slammed the door shut and walked forward like a scene out of an old western. Who sent you here? My brother asked, eyes locked on the officers. The man leading the raid swallowed hard. We were dispatched by HOA District Security. We have orders. My brother cut him off, loud and firm. From who? He repeated. No answer. Then he looked straight at me. Little brother, you good? I smiled. You tell me. My brother turned slowly to face the other officers. His voice dropped, dead serious. This man right here owns this land. This ranch has been in our family for 3 generations. And the HOA has 0 authority here. The men looked at each other. One even lowered his hand from his weapon. My brother stepped up to the lead cop and whispered something in his ear. The man turned pale. And right there on my gravel driveway, every single one of them started turning around, walking back to their trucks. But that's not even the craziest part. Because just 3 days earlier, I had no idea I was even in trouble. I was fixing up a broken gate on the west side of my ranch. My dog, Rusty, was chasing a butterfly like he had no worries in the world. Life was peaceful, quiet. My parents had passed the ranch down to me when they moved to Florida to finally rest their old bones, as my dad said. I'd spent my entire adult life here. It was more than land. It was home. But recently, things had been weird. Letters from the HOA started showing up. Weird ones. The first just said, your ranch appears to be in violation of shared community bylaws. I crumpled it up and tossed it in the trash. I didn't even have an HOA. Next came a pink notice taped to my gate. Final warning. Remove unauthorized structures or face consequences. Now that got under my skin. What structures? My shed? My barn? The windmill? Everything here had been built legally. Permitted. Approved. Years ago. I walked into town the next day to ask questions. That's when I saw them. 2 HOA representatives, matching navy polo shirts and clipboards in hand, arguing with my neighbor, Mr. Jackson. Sir, your chickens are wandering into shared HOA lanes. You're in violation. He laughed in their faces. What HOA? This is ranch land. But they weren't laughing. They pulled out a map. A new one. And that's when I saw it too. Somehow, they'd redrawn boundaries to include our ranches in their community territory. Something was off. They were claiming ownership over land they didn't pay for. Land passed down through generations. Land they had no business touching. I asked them directly, who signed off on this map? The taller one smirked. All residents are automatically opted in. We'll take care of everything now. Security, regulations, safety. I stepped in close. I never signed anything. You don't need to. It's in the bylaws. That word again. Bylaws. So, I went home. I called my brother that evening. Told him what I saw. What I felt. What I feared. He paused. Don't worry, he said. If anything happens, call me first. I didn't know how serious it would get. Until the next morning, when my mailbox was ripped clean off its post. A new one had been installed. A sleek black one with the letters HOA numbered 027 on the side. The following day, my dog Rusty was missing for 6 hours. I found him locked inside a small fenced corner of my own barn. One I didn't build. The padlock was new. The fence posts? New. A hidden camera was mounted above the stall. That's when I knew something was deeply wrong. I tried calling their number. Got voicemail. I emailed. No reply. And the day after that, the sheriff SUVs came rolling in. But back to the moment my brother showed up. Because what happened next changed everything. Just as the officers were backing away, a black car pulled up. Not a cop car. Not a ranch truck. An HOA official stepped out. Smooth haircut. Expensive shoes. A smug look that made my skin crawl. He walked straight up and said, "I don't think you understand who you're dealing with." My brother raised an eyebrow. "You don't know who you're dealing with." Then he pulled out his phone hit record and said loudly, "Please repeat what you just said for the record." And the man froze. The HOA rep's face went stiff like he just realized he walked into a trap. He looked from my brother's phone to the sheriff badge pinned on his chest. Then to me, standing there with arms crossed and one eyebrow raised. My brother repeated himself, slowly this time. "Go ahead. Tell us again what you just said about kicking my brother off his own ranch." The man tried to backpedal. "There seems to be a misunderstanding. This isn't about ownership. It's about compliance. Our team was merely ensuring neighborhood standards were being enforced." "Neighborhood?" my brother scoffed. "This is open ranch land. There's no neighborhood out here." That's when the man pulled out a binder. He flipped it open and revealed maps, forms, a set of bylaws printed in small gray text. He slid it toward us on the hood of a cop car. "We've recently restructured the district. This property," he pointed to a new boundary line, "is now under HOA Region 14's umbrella. You'll see it's clearly marked in our most recent filing with the county." I stepped forward. "I didn't vote for that. Didn't sign it. And no one ever asked." The man gave a tight smile. "You don't need to. It passed by simple majority from the new subdivision 10 miles down the road. The whole district was absorbed." That's when my brother leaned in and whispered something to me. "They're banking on you not knowing the law." Then he turned to the man and said aloud, "Let me guess. You filed it, but the county clerk hasn't confirmed the zoning changes yet." The HOA rep blinked. No comment. My brother smirked. "That's what I thought." Then he said something I'll never forget. "Boys, search everything. I want a full report of what they planted on this land without consent. Cameras, gates, anything." 2 deputies stepped out immediately and began walking the perimeter. And that's when things really took a turn. Let's rewind, because I need you to understand how we even got here in the first place. A few months earlier, a group of developers bought some land about 10 miles south of my ranch. Built shiny new houses, fancy roads, even a gated entry with flower beds. They called it Willow Springs Community Estates. Didn't think much of it. Just another rich folks' neighborhood. But then the trouble started. They started calling themselves Region 14 HOA. I heard from folks at the feed store that they were sending drones over nearby farms to inspect weed growth. They were knocking on people's doors offering free lawn evaluations. Some folks laughed it off. Others? Not so lucky. Mr. Thompson, who lives just past my east fence, had his rainwater barrels removed. Miss Grace, who raises goats near the creek, said 2 of her fencing panels disappeared overnight, only to be replaced with ugly white HOA fencing. It was getting weird. Then they came for me. I was the biggest ranch on the northern side. If they could get me into the HOA, the rest of the ranchers would fall like dominoes. I became the target. At first, they were sneaky. They installed a Wi-Fi repeater tower behind my barn. Quiet. Overnight. I didn't even see it until it buzzed one day and Rusty started barking like mad. Then the letters started arriving, thicker each time. And then they stopped pretending to be nice. One afternoon, I came back from the market and found the dirt path to my south field freshly paved, with HOA logos painted at the ends. I called the county office. They were confused. Nothing in their system showed any new road permits. That's when I knew it was more than just rule pushing. It was a straight-up land grab. But they didn't expect me to fight back, or to have my brother back in the present. My brother's deputies returned with a box. Inside, small surveillance cameras, motion sensors, microphones, hidden in my barn, my workshop, even the old hayloft. My brother whistled. "You bugged a veteran's private property? Without a warrant." One deputy added, "There's a satellite signal booster disguised as a wind vane behind the shed." The HOA rep's face turned red. "This is all protocol, within rights granted by regional zoning alignments." "Not without consent," my brother snapped. The officers behind him murmured. These weren't HOA contractors. These were real law enforcement. And now they were angry. My brother looked at the lead HOA guy and said calmly, "You have two choices. 1. You pack up everything you installed and get off this land. 2. We bring charges for trespassing, surveillance, and unlawful land claims." The man hesitated. He pulled out his phone and stepped aside to make a call. I leaned toward my brother. "You think they'll back off?" He stared at the man's back. "Not likely. These guys aren't playing fair. Which means we don't either." He smiled then, the kind of grin only brothers share. "I think it's time you got a lawyer." I raised a brow. "You got someone in mind?" "Better. Your lawyer already called me. Said something about digging up land records and deeds going back to 1914. That's when I realized this fight was just getting started. And just when I thought the tension would ease, one of the deputies shouted from behind the barn, "Sheriff, you're going to want to see this." We rushed over. There, dug halfway into the ground, was a large concrete vault, buried, sealed. On the side, printed in faded ink, "Property of HOA Region 14, Fiber Hub Node Number 004. It was a major underground installation on my ranch, and I had no idea it was there. My brother turned to me slowly. "Are you sure you didn't lease out any part of your land?" "Positive," I said, heart racing. Then he looked back at the HOA rep. "You buried company equipment on private land, without notice, without permission." The man stammered. "We had assumed approval after the map change. It was standard procedure for continuity of services." My brother stepped forward, voice low. "That's not gonna fly, pal." I stood over that concrete vault like I was staring at a grave. It wasn't just a box underground. It was a message, a warning. They didn't come here to ask for my land. They came here to take it. And the worst part? They almost got away with it. The deputy who discovered the underground node was dusting off the hatch cover. "Sir, this thing's powered. There's a fiber line running from it all the way under the road." My brother looked over. "Where does it lead?" The deputy pointed southeast, to the new HOA subdivision, Willow Springs. I clenched my fists. They'd tunneled under my ranch, buried fiber infrastructure to serve their luxury homes. Without a lease, without a word, not even a handshake. And now, somehow, I was the one getting eviction threats? Let's go back a little. You need to understand how hard I worked for this place. I didn't grow up rich. My dad was a war vet. Mom worked 2 jobs. We were tough folks, but humble. This land wasn't handed to me. It was earned. Years ago, when I returned from my last deployment, I used every dime I had to buy out the remaining mortgage for my parents. Fenced every acre. Fixed every broken shed door. Fed every neighbor's cow during drought seasons. I even built a small barn clinic just to help when neighbors couldn't afford a vet. So when this HOA came rolling in with fancy pamphlets and legalese, treating us like squatters, they weren't just messing with me. They were disrespecting everything we stood for out here. Back at the ranch, my brother radioed his office. "I want the county zoning commissioner here now, and pull the original deed records for this land. All of it." Then he turned to me. "We're locking this place down. Nobody touches that vault until we know what's inside." The HOA rep tried to interrupt, still on his phone. "You don't have jurisdiction. This is HOA regulated property." My brother snapped, "This is private land, under county sheriff jurisdiction. And last time I checked, HOA doesn't outrank the law. The man went quiet. We waited. And within an hour, the county clerk showed up. Short woman in a brown blazer, glasses sliding down her nose, holding an armful of records. "This is wild," she said, walking past the patrol cars. "You were right. HOA Region 14's land adjustments were filed, but never approved. The paperwork is incomplete. They skipped the zoning committee review." She dropped the files on the hood of my truck. "Your land, Mr. Thompson, is still registered in full under your name." I looked the HOA rep dead in the eye. "You hear that? It's my land." But he didn't back down. He pulled out his phone again. "I'll be calling our legal team. You'll be hearing from them." My brother laughed. "Good. Tell them to bring snacks. This is going to be fun." You'd think that would have scared them off. But the next day, I woke up to something worse. All my utility services, power, internet, even the water pump, were shut off. No warning. No notice. I called the electric company. They said they'd received a formal request from HOA Region 14 to temporarily suspend services for code violations. Same with the water board. They had the nerve to say I hadn't submitted my land use compliance form. A form I had never seen in my life. They were trying to force me off the land by making it unlivable. But they forgot one thing. I don't scare easily. And I've got a family. I stayed at my brother's that night. The next morning, while sipping black coffee on his porch, we both watched as his team printed out official cease and desist orders. He handed me one, signed by the county judge. "Any HOA activity on your ranch? Now illegal. We'll post these on every entrance." But I wasn't done yet. "You think we can turn this on them?" I asked. He nodded. "Absolutely." That's when I got the idea. If they wanted to use my land for fiber access, they'd have to pay. And not just a little. Market value lease rates. Legal contracts. Backdated rent. Penalties. I was going to make them wish they'd left me alone. That afternoon, I hired a land surveyor. He brought drones and scanners and mapped everything. Turns out, HOA Region 14's entire internet connection ran through my southern field. The underground line had been snaked through the base of my windmill to boost signal. And without it, their network collapsed. 2 days later, I posted signs on my gates. "No trespassing. Fiber installation closed. Access requires permission." Then I sent them the invoice. Lease access contract proposal, $12,000 per month. Back fees for illegal installation, $48,000. Fines for trespass and unauthorized digging, $25,000. Grand total, $85,000. The next morning, their internet went out. All of Willow Springs. Phones, Wi-Fi, smart home locks, dead. They came back, red-faced, furious. 3 board members showed up in suits, waving legal papers and threatening court. But my brother met them at the gate. He held up the cease and desist, then pointed at my new signs, then opened the lease agreement I'd written up and said, "You want that fiber turned back on? Sign this, or dig up your equipment and go home." And the best part? They signed it. Every page. Right there on the back of my tailgate. But you think that was the end? Nope. Because someone from the HOA made one last move. That night, just before sunset, I caught 2 guys with flashlights trying to dig near the vault. They weren't in HOA pools. They wore black, unmarked gear, walkie-talkies. One of them saw me and ran. The other didn't make it past Rusty. My dog tackled him to the ground, and I got there just in time to pull off his mask. He wasn't local, didn't even speak. I called my brother. He called the FBI. The FBI agents arrived at dawn. Unmarked black vehicles rolled down my ranch road, headlights piercing the early morning fog. They didn't knock. They didn't chat. They moved. 4 men, all in suits. 1 woman in tactical gear. All serious faces. My brother stood by the gate, already in uniform, nodding as they stepped out. "This your guy?" one of them asked, pointing to the man Rusty had tackled the night before. I nodded. Caught him trying to dig up the fiber vault. The FBI agent turned to the guy, still handcuffed and sitting on the edge of my cattle trailer. The agent squatted in front of him, eye to eye. No ID, no phone, no fingerprints in the system. I folded my arms. So who is he? The agent stood. That's what we're going to find out. But I'll tell you what he isn't. He's not a rancher. And he's definitely not with the HOA board. I stepped closer. Then what was he doing on my land? The woman in tactical gear chimed in. We found a signal beacon in his backpack. Short-range transmitter. Looks like they were trying to locate or extract data from the underground node. Extract. I repeated. My brother raised a brow. That fiber box. What if it's not just the internet? That's when one of the agents said something that gave me chills. We've been tracking an illegal surveillance ring that's been using private land to plant data relays. Ranches, farmland, quiet properties. They use fake HOA approvals as cover. I stared at him. So, my ranch was part of a spy network. The agent didn't say yes, but he didn't say no either. Let's rewind, because this story just went from neighborhood feud to national security. And I had no idea. Weeks before all this, I'd been noticing weird signal drops on my land. Drones flying overhead more often. Flashing red lights near the tree line. Even the old CB radio in my barn would click on and buzz for no reason. I figured it was just storm interference. But now, I knew better. This wasn't just about HOA bylaws. Someone used the HOA as a front to tap into private ranch land and install hidden tech under everyone's noses. My land? It was their biggest prize. Remote. Quiet. No neighbors within shouting distance. And they almost got away with it. Back at the ranch, the FBI secured the vault, pulled up the hatch, revealed a server unit glowing faintly with green LEDs. One of the agents lifted a cable, squinting. Encrypted. Military grade. This isn't just a residential internet. My brother paced nearby. You think the HOA board knows what's under here? The lead agent shrugged. Maybe. Maybe not. We've seen this before. They pay a few board members, offer incentives. Others don't ask questions. All they care about is the perks. Perks. I asked. Free Wi-Fi. Upgraded roads. New facilities. All provided by the sponsor company behind the fiber. And that company is... The agent handed me a card. One word on it. OMA'S. A name I had never heard before. But I would. Very soon. That night, I couldn't sleep. Rusty laid by my bed, growling every time the wind rustled a tree outside. I kept staring at that card. OMA'S. I searched for it online. Nothing official. Only a few strange articles. Some Reddit threads. Conspiracy-level stuff. Ghost ISP hiding in plain sight. Building smart suburbs for digital testing. Linked to foreign contracts and behavioral tracking. It didn't seem real. But then again, a fake HOA tried to evict me using real cops and buried a glowing server on my land. So, yeah, anything was possible now. The next day, we had a town meeting, held in the community barn. Every rancher, every family, even folks from Willow Springs. They all came. And when I stood up to speak, I didn't hold back. Neighbors, y'all know me. I've never been the loud type. But today, I need to speak loud and clear. Someone tried to take our land. Not just mine, ours. Murmurs all over the room. I continued. They used fancy papers, made up maps, fake threats. But the worst part? They buried a server right under our noses. Gasps. I held up the photo I took of the vault before the FBI sealed it. This is what was under my barn. This is what's feeding their smart homes, their doorbells, their cameras. Someone shouted from the back. They put cameras on my horse stable. I raised my voice. We've been tricked. And now it's time to fight back. That's when my brother stepped up beside me and addressed the crowd. This isn't just a land dispute anymore. This is bigger. It's about rights. About privacy. About protecting the people who built this land with their bare hands. And then he dropped the bomb. We're forming a legal coalition. A counter board. Independent from HOA control. Everyone who's been harassed, we're documenting it. Everyone who's been tricked, you'll be compensated. Cheers broke out. People stood, clapped. Even the older folks who rarely talked, like Miss Grace with her goats, stood tall. We weren't just defending ourselves anymore. We were uniting. But as I stood there feeling proud, my phone buzzed. Unknown number. I stepped outside, answered it. A voice on the other end said only one thing. You should have taken a payout. Now it's war. Click. That phone call chilled me to the bone. You should have taken the payout. Now it's war. No name. No caller ID. Just a threat, plain and cold. I stood outside the barn-turned meeting hall, holding the phone tight as the last of the evening sun dipped behind the hills. My brother stepped out a moment later, saw my face, and knew something was off. What happened? I showed him the number on my screen. They just called me. His jaw tightened. Let me guess, threats? I nodded. He took my phone and handed it to one of his deputies. Trace it. I want to know exactly who that was. That same evening, 3 federal agents arrived with handheld detectors and a long metal wand that buzzed like a bee when it got close to anything hidden. They found 3 more bugs. One under my kitchen table, one inside my workshop's fuse box, and one inside Rusty's dog collar. I nearly lost it. My dog. They tagged my dog. That was the moment everything changed. I wasn't angry anymore. I was done. This was war. The next morning, I stood in front of our entire rancher coalition. Over 60 of us now, from 5 different counties. We met in front of my barn, everyone dressed in jeans, boots, and steel in their eyes. I held up the collar. They planted this on Rusty. That's how far they're willing to go. Gasps all around. My brother stepped forward. Here's what we know. This is bigger than the HOA. It's an organized effort. Fake zoning. Secret tech. They've been planting listening devices on private land across multiple states. They fund their operation by pretending to be a homeowners association. But really, they're data traffickers, selling info from inside people's homes. And this ranch is their central node. A hand went up in the crowd. Mr. Baines. Old vet, real quiet. What do we do now? I looked at him, and I said 3 words. We take it back. We launched Operation Cut the Cord. First step, disable every wire, cable, and node we didn't install ourselves. Electricians from the community stepped up. Tech-savvy teens brought laptops and jammers. By sunset, we had every unauthorized feed cut off, every repeater tower disabled, and 2 fiber cables ripped out of the ground like snakes. We handed it all to the FBI. Next, we began tracking them. We started using trail cams, motion sensors, CB radios with coded signals. We documented everything. License plates, drone flights, suspicious visitors. One night, we even followed a sleek black sedan from the edge of my property to a strange facility 30 miles out. Just a big concrete warehouse with tinted windows and no signs. We sent the GPS to the feds. They raided it the next week. Inside, servers, fiber tech, files labeled with homeowner names from multiple counties. Our names. Then, the lawsuits started rolling in. And this time, we were the ones filing. My brother teamed up with 3 law firms, and we slapped HOA, Region 14 Novalinks, and every listed board member with a mountain of legal fire. Trespassing, illegal surveillance, fraud, wiretapping, forgery, zoning violations. The list went on. The total? Over $25 million in claims. And that got their attention. They responded the only way cowards ever do, through intimidation. One night, around 1:30 a.m., a fire broke out in my north field. My hay bales were blazing like torches. I ran outside barefoot, grabbing a hose, calling my brother as I sprayed down embers. The fire was spreading fast, too fast to be natural. Then I saw it. 2 sets of tire tracks leading away through the dirt. Someone had done this on purpose. Arson. Within minutes, 2 fire trucks and a sheriff unit were on the scene. They contained it, but I lost half my winter feed. The FBI agents showed up an hour later. They found a scorched piece of a broken bottle soaked in accelerant. Molotov. We knew who was behind it. But proving it? That would take time. Still, I didn't let it break me. If anything, it made me stronger. Because of that fire? Lit a fire inside me too. 2 days later, everything changed. Mel, the journalist who broke the story, called us to then check the news. Now, we turned on the TV. There it was. Breaking. Congressional inquiry into fake HOA surveillance network begins. Multiple arrests made. Footage played of men in suits being handcuffed. One of them, the same smug lawyer who tried to buy me out. And then something wild. The CEO of OMA'S? He wasn't even a U.S. citizen. He was on an international watch list for cybercrimes. My brother and I exchanged a look. This just went global, he said. And then, just when we thought it couldn't go any deeper, we got a visit. Not from the FBI, not from the media, but from a senator. Senator Brooks. Military background. Real quiet type. He came alone. No cameras. No press. He shook my hand firmly. We owe you, he said. Your case blew the lid off something we've been trying to expose for years. I asked him, how deep does this go? He just looked out at the ranch, then back at me, and said, deeper than you think. But thanks to you, we're finally bringing it to the surface. He handed me a folder. Inside, a sealed document labeled, Declassified Authorization, Civilian Surveillance Oversight Reform Package, Draft Proposal. My ranch, my fight, my dog, all of it had started something national. The folder from Senator Brooks was still warm from his hands when I opened it on my porch that evening. Inside were pages of legislative language, lines and lines of legal text that, frankly, I barely understood. But one section caught my eye. It read, prompted by civilian whistleblower action on illegally zoned land and unauthorized digital surveillance systems on rural property. Right under that, my name, my ranch. I sat there in silence for a moment. It hit me. This wasn't just about fighting for my land anymore. This was bigger than me, bigger than our town, bigger than HOA Region 14. My fight had shaken the system. But while the government worked on its own timeline, our enemies didn't wait. The next day, we received a tip. A former HOA contractor, let's call him Eric, reached out to Mel, the reporter. Said he had info that could blow everything wide open, but he was scared. Mel asked me to meet him neutral ground. A gas station off Highway 6. My brother didn't like it. It smells like bait. I agreed. But we went anyway, fully prepared. My brother came with 2 deputies. I brought Rusty and a small recorder in my shirt pocket. Eric showed up late, hoodie up, eyes darting. He didn't say much, just handed over a hard drive. They buried this. It's everything. The real maps, the blueprints, the contracts. They used the HOA to hide OMA'S tracking grid. You weren't just the fiber hub. You were the data core. I asked why now. He hesitated. They tried to use my land next. After what they did to yours, I couldn't sleep. So I copied everything before they shut the system down. Then he looked at me and said they were planning to replace you. Not fight you. Just erase you. We rushed the drive to the FBI office. They verified it within hours. It was real. Every blueprint. Every forged zoning document. The entire layout of the buried network. Even more shocking, there were over 78 other sites. All in rural areas. All under cooperative HOA zones. All feeding into a massive data bank labeled Project Lantern. My brother's voice cracked when he said it out loud. They weren't just stealing land. They were building a nationwide surveillance grid. News spread fast. Mel ran a new headline. Leaked files reveal U.S. ranchers were part of secret spy network. Feds confirm criminal conspiracy. Suddenly, we weren't alone anymore. People from Texas, Utah, Idaho, Alabama, farmers, ranchers, families started speaking out. It became a movement. They called it #TakeBackTheLand. Then, just as momentum was building, they struck again. This time, they didn't send drones. They sent fake feds. 2 men in black suits showed up at my gate at sunrise, badges in hand. Claimed they were there to collect federal property and secure the vault. But something was off. No official vehicle. No paperwork. And the badge of one of them flashed. Wrong font. Wrong seal. Rusty growled before I even opened the gate. I stalled them, then hit the silent alert button my brother installed by the fence post. Within 7 minutes, 5 real deputies and 2 FBI agents surrounded them. They ran. Didn't get far. One got tackled trying to cross the creek. The other tripped over a barbed wire coil I had left from fence repairs. Both were arrested. Turns out they were contractors, paid off to recover sensitive equipment before the feds could complete their investigation. The vault wasn't just a server node. It was a direct relay to a foreign satellite grid. One agent told us if that data had been extracted, we wouldn't have been able to trace it, ever. So we made a move. A big one. We got a court order to not just disable the vault, but to seize it. My brother called in every resource he had. By the following week, a full team from the Department of Cybersecurity and Homeland Security was on my land with cranes, trucks, and mobile encryption labs. They unearthed the vault, 6 feet deep, reinforced steel, built like a miniature bunker. It took hours to pull out. When they cracked it open, you could hear the hiss of pressure release. Inside, drives, chips, wireless modules, and a satellite uplink terminal shaped like a miniature radar dish. One of the techs stared in disbelief. This thing's not even American-made. That night, the sky over my ranch was quiet for the first time in months. No drones. No SUVs. No suits. Just stars. Real stars. Rusty sat beside me as I sipped my coffee, breathing in peace. And I thought for the first time in a long while, maybe we really were going to win. But just as the thought passed, my phone buzzed. It was a video message from an unknown number. It was a drone's eye view of my ranch. The camera zoomed in on me sitting on my porch in real time. The message ended with, "You stop one vault. We built 30 more." I stared at my phone, heart pounding like hooves on dry earth. They didn't just want my land. They wanted control, information, surveillance, domination. And if we didn't stop them now, they'd come back stronger. By sunrise, my ranch became a war room. Federal agents, local deputies, cyber experts, lawyers, journalists, we were all there. The footage had confirmed one terrifying truth. The organization we were up against wasn't just a rogue HOA. It was a network. Private. Global. Built on fake homeowner associations, front companies, and buried tech. We named the new operation Project Blackout. The mission, trace, locate, expose, shut down every vault. And guess who was leading the search? Me. And my ranch? Command Center Zero. It started with the hard drive Eric gave us. Cyber analysts cracked a file labeled Lantern Vault Map (DVX). It revealed 30 red dots across the country. Not cities. Remote zones. 2 were in Utah. 4 in West Texas. 1, believe it or not, hidden under a children's park in South Carolina. Another, a ski resort in Colorado, underneath a storage shed. All buried. All disguised. All quietly draining data from unsuspecting civilians. I stared at the screen as each one lit up like embers across the map. This isn't just theft, I said. This is warfare. The first coordinated raid happened 1 week later. Teams hit 5 states simultaneously. The results? Explosive. Literally. One vault had a built-in self-destruct mechanism. Another was booby-trapped with gas lines set to blow if tampered with. A third had armed guards pretending to be HOA maintenance workers. Real guns. Real threats. But the biggest shock came from the files recovered. Voice recordings from baby monitors. Screen captures from smart TVs. GPS logs from tractors, harvesters, school buses. Conversations between couples inside their own homes. Every single file labeled, tagged, organized. Every name cross-referenced. It was digital colonization, and the entire operation had one name written at the top of every report. Novail Lannex. So we went after them. Full throttle. Congress launched hearings. The Department of Justice filed criminal charges. Interpol got involved. Within months, the CEO of OMA'S was arrested in Iceland, trying to escape under a fake identity. The remaining executives vanished. Some say they fled to unmarked territories. But one thing was certain. Their reign was over. And me? The rancher they tried to erase? I was still standing. So was Rusty. So was my land. Weeks after the final vaults were removed, I stood at the edge of my south field, wind blowing through the tall grass. A camera crew was setting up nearby. 60 Minutes was doing a segment called The Ranch That Fought Back. Mel, the reporter who started it all, walked up beside me. Think you'll ever sleep easy again? I chuckled. I don't think that's the point anymore. What matters is, if they try it again, they'll know one thing. She raised a brow. What's that? I looked into the distance and said, we're not scared of suits. We've got boots. And brothers. That night, we held a celebration. Community bonfire. Barbecue. Laughter. My brother toasted the crowd. To land that stays free. To people who don't back down. And to family, by blood or by bond. Cheers all around. Even Rusty barked in approval. As the fire crackled and stars shone above, a small girl tugged my sleeve. Mr. Thompson, she said, my dad says you're a hero. I knelt down to her level and smiled. Nah, heroes wear capes. I just wear boots. She giggled. But I am proud, I added, because I stood up when it mattered. And that was enough. As the crowd danced and sang behind me, I walked to the edge of the ranch. Looked out at the land they tried to take, the life they tried to ruin, and I smiled. Because I won. Because we all did. Because, sometimes, the strongest man on the battlefield isn't the one with the biggest weapon. It's the one who refuses to move from his land.